Imagine waking up to find your entire world is an illusion, an intricate hologram, a masterfully created program. Have you ever felt that subtle doubt about the solidity of the reality around you? We trust our senses every day, but what if they are merely intermediaries, relaying a distorted signal, or perhaps entirely generated data? Today, we will delve into a paradox formulated 1,000 years ago by the great Omar Khayyam, a genius who saw beyond his time. This idea resonates so strongly with quantum physics and the deepfake phenomenon that it forces us to reevaluate every moment of our lives. Khayyam was not just a poet, he was a scientist who observed the universe and perceived its imperfections and phantasmagoria long before the advent of computing machines. He distilled this profound insight into 4 lines, which we will now analyze and which represent the most honest perspective on our ontology. Listen to this Rubaiyat quatrain and feel how 1,000-year-old philosophy penetrates the present day. All that you see is but a single semblance. The essence is far from the visibility of shadows. No one has yet grasped what it truly is, so remain you too amidst the conjectures. This is a call for intellectual humility, which we have almost lost today in the age of total information. If you want to delve deeper into the world of Omar Khayyam, I recommend this particular edition of the Rubaiyat, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. It is a wonderful book for your collection or as a gift. It will allow you to independently unravel new layers of meaning hidden within his genius verses. It will become your guide into this garden of the Rubaiyat every time you feel the need for a philosophical refuge. The order link is below this video. The poet who saw shadows was also one of the greatest mathematicians and astronomers of his time, whose scientific works are fundamental. Khayyam is not merely a sage of wine and sorrow. He is a genius who developed a calendar more accurate than the Julian one and solved cubic equations. Imagine a person who spends hours measuring the movement of the stars and then writes about the phantasmagoria and secondary nature of all existence. His philosophy grew not out of idle speculation, but from precise scientific observations of the world and its patterns. He knew how difficult it was to distinguish the scientific model from the reality he was working with. As a scientist, he constantly worked with models of celestial bodies and models of algebraic equations that describe processes. He understood that any model, even the most accurate, is only a convenient conjecture about the true nature of things, an attempt to interpret it. It was this very tool, his scientific optics, that enabled him to see the flaw in all human knowledge, which always only approaches the truth. We create mental constructs and then mistakenly accept them as objective fact, often trusting them blindly. Khayyam realized that we live captive to elegant yet still conjectures, which might change tomorrow. In his time, as today, the main problem lay in the role of the observer and their influence on what is being observed. An astronomer looks at the sky and sees the movement of planets, but is he seeing the planets themselves, or merely the reflection of light passing through optical distortions and the atmosphere? Khayyam laid the groundwork for what would later be called the problem of phenomenology. Our perception is always filtered through subjective experience. Even the most perfect instrument, whether a sextant or the human eye, gives us only a shadow of the truth. Hence his call, so remain you too amidst the conjectures, because this is the most honest position in a world of the unknown. He saw that the universe operates by laws that can be expressed mathematically, but the very nature of these laws remains elusive to our minds. Mathematics gives us the code, but does not explain who wrote it and why, or what the ultimate goal of this program is. It is in this gap between knowing how and knowing what that Khayyam's philosophical drama lies, which is relevant to this day. This was the first step toward the idea that our reality might be just a complex program running on an invisible server. His genius was that he posed this question 1,000 years ago, when the concept of electronics was unimaginable. The world, as Khayyam's model suggested, was determined yet incomprehensible, similar to calculating the trajectory of a comet. If everything is a shadow, does the shadow have free will, or does it simply follow the object that casts it? This philosophical challenge is the foundation for the debate about fate that rages even today in neuroscience. Are we merely pawns on the chessboard of destiny, moved by an invisible player, or can we change our movement within the set rules? Khayyam acknowledged the power of the unknown, but urged us not to surrender to fatalism, but to act within the limits of our possibilities. Khayyam often used the metaphor of the pot and the potter, or the clay that does not know its form until the last moment. We, like the clay, have a form that is assigned to us, but we do not know the ultimate goal of this formation. We do not know its intention. Science, in turn, tries to disassemble this pot into atoms to understand its chemical composition and its structure. But even knowing the chemical composition, we do not know the potter's intention, his ultimate idea embedded in the process. Therefore, our knowledge of the clay does not free us from our form and our fate, but only helps us to comprehend it. And now, let us take a leap 1,000 years forward to quantum physics, where paradoxes are the norm, not the exception. Do you remember how measuring a particle affects its state, turning potential into a fixed, observable reality? Khayyam intuitively sensed this, stating, "No one has yet grasped what it truly is," which is the essence of quantum uncertainty. Our conjecture and our observation fix the reality we see, but destroy its true, ephemeral wave nature that existed before the measurement. We are simultaneously observers and creators of the shadow we see, and this responsibility is fundamental. This Rubaiyat is a true epic about the uncertainty principle, written long before Heisenberg without any formulas. We can know either the form of the shadow or its speed, but not both parameters at once, because they are incompatible observations. The attempt to understand the essence, position, destroys our knowledge of the semblance, momentum, and vice versa. Khayyam advises us to simply accept. We cannot have everything and grasp the absolute. To remain amidst the conjectures is the only way to maintain intellectual integrity, because the final answer is hidden in a fog that does not dissipate. What did Khayyam mean by a single semblance? Imagine you were looking at a perfectly realistic 3D model of an apple on a screen, created using advanced graphics. The model has color, shadows, and sheen, but it lacks the taste, smell, or weight, which are its essence. This apple is a single semblance, a complete set of external characteristics without the inner essence that makes it real. Modern neurobiology confirms that our brain constructs the external world in exactly this way, as the best but simplified model from the available data. This is our personal simulation, which limits our knowledge. Now let's talk about shadows, the key metaphor describing our participation in this world. A shadow is a secondary product. It only arises due to a light source and an object, but it is not the object itself. Khayyam asserts that we are not seeing reality, but its projection, like in Plato's cave, which is relevant to the modern media space. For example, we see another person's success on social media, but this is only a shadow of their real life, created by the illumination of filters and editing. Chasing shadows, as we do, is pointless because they cannot satisfy us. The final key word of his Rubaiyat is conjecture, and it contains the greatest wisdom. Our belief in reality is not proof, but a collective, socially supported conjecture that we accept as truth. We assume that a wall is solid, that tomorrow will come, that our friend is sincere, because that is how our society and consciousness function. Even the strongest scientific theory, like the theory of gravity, is only the most successful conjecture to date, one that can be replaced. Khayyam calls, "So remain you too amidst the conjectures," because this acknowledgement is the highest peak of intellect and honesty. This philosophy is not a call to despair or nihilism, as it might seem to people who crave absolute truth. On the contrary, acknowledging conjectures provides incredible freedom, liberating one from the necessity of possessing absolute knowledge. If your worldview is not the absolute truth, you can change it, improve it, or even discard it when new data emerges. It is like in Gladwell's analysis, when he examines how success often comes to those who question generally accepted rules. Khayyam says, doubt your reality to create a better and more flexible model. The essence of the Rubaiyat is that the search for what it truly is ultimately a waste of life energy because transcending consciousness is impossible. It is like trying to find the edge of the universe while it may be infinite or closed, meaning the search will continue forever. Khayyam, as a pragmatic scientist, focuses on what we can control, our attitude towards the shadows and our engagement with them. Why waste time on what cannot be grasped when one can enjoy what exists within our limited experience? We forget that our consciousness is the only playing field. At this point, Khayyam's philosophy merges with a life-affirming optimism, similar to Coelho's stance, which celebrates the journey. If everything is a shadow, then we can become the best shadows, the most elegant and virtuous projections. Our duty is to fill this single semblance with meaning, emotion, and beauty that come exclusively from deep within our core. And although shadows do not have essence, they do have experience, and that is the only reality we possess and can know. We cannot change the rules of the universe's game, but we can become masters on the field that has been allotted to us. The main lesson: there is a limit to knowledge, and this is not a failure of the human mind, but a fundamental feature of existence that must be accepted. We cannot grasp the divine code, but we can enjoy its impeccable and beautiful execution in daily life. Accepting this limit reduces the internal conflict and existential anxiety that arise from the inability to comprehend the absolute. This is a philosophical exercise in humility that leads to inner peace, not disappointment and despair. Thus, Khayyam transforms an ontological problem into a practical guide for a happy life focused on the quality of the moment. Today, a single semblance takes on a chillingly literal meaning due to deepfake technologies and generative AI. We see a person, we hear their voice, and we conjecture that it is them. But it could be a perfect shadow generated by an algorithm, indistinguishable from the original. Technology has erased the line between the original and the copy, proving the thousand-year-old foresight of Khayyam, who saw the phantasmagoria in it all. We are entering an era where trust becomes the most expensive resource, and the truth is simply a better generated and more convincing conjecture. And what about the simulation hypothesis discussed by Elon Musk and modern physicists, that our universe is a program? If our universe is a gigantic computer program, then we are certainly shadows and conjectures being executed on someone else's computer. This idea is not frightening, it adds an excitement, because even in a simulation, there is room for genuine feelings and deep emotions. Khayyam prepared us for this thought, asserting that the external world will always be merely an interface, a set of icons. This modern crisis of reality forces us to turn to the only thing that is not a shadow, our inner consciousness and sense of self. You can fake a video, but you cannot fake the pain or joy you feel in your soul. The consciousness that observes the simulation is more real than the simulation itself, because it is the sole source of experience. Therefore, the main task is to distinguish your true self, your inner core, from your digital or social avatar that you appear to the world. If we cannot grasp the what, the essence, we must focus on the how, the quality of existence, and the quality of our experience. The quality of your shadow, of your life, depends on your mastery in this moment and your presence. We are given this short life, this single semblance, and we must make it a masterpiece as much as possible. Khayyam calls us to an ethical and aesthetic responsibility for our time and our actions. This transforms existential anxiety into an inspiring creative challenge. Your personality, your actions, your relationships, these are the architecture of your shadow that you project into the world. You cannot be the absolute truth, but you can be an honest shadow, one who lives by their own laws of dignity. True courage lies in being faithful to the form you have been given and not pretending to be something greater than you are. As Gladwell noted, only a deep understanding of one's unique circumstances leads to success and life satisfaction. Being the best version of yourself is the best conjecture of all possible ones. Accepting that you live amidst conjectures grants the greatest freedom imaginable, freeing you from the eternal search. You no longer need to prove a universal truth. You can simply live your truth, shaped by experience and values. This removes the burden of constantly seeking absolutes and allows you to focus on simple yet profound joys. Do not search for the source of light that creates your shadow. Instead, dance with your shadow in the light that exists, making the best use of it. This is the deepest, most practical insight of Omar Khayyam. 1,000 years ago, Khayyam gave us a tool for navigating a world of uncertainty. Do not fear conjectures, but be guided by them wisely. Remember that your life is not merely a shadow. It is the finest canvas upon which you are writing your own unique story. Share in the comments what part of reality feels like the biggest simulation to you today and why you think so. Subscribe to The Garden of the Rubaiyat and hit the notification bell so we can unravel these eternal mysteries together and avoid getting lost in the stream of shadows. Until our next meeting in the Gardens of Wisdom.